Hello everyone and welcome back to the next episode of the Road to FIDE Master series. This is the episode number 31 and I will cover the round number 7 from the Polish First League. Yesterday, as you know, we crushed the opponent. Let's see if that was the case today. My opponent was Jakub Janeczko, a young player, very good one, and he crushed me already a few times, so I never managed to even draw against him, if I am correct. So even though I got white pieces, I wasn't in the mood of, let's say, winning the game. And also by the team strategy, let's say, I was not expected to win either, because our opponents had very good first three boards, and then we should have tried to fight for some points on the boards number 4, 5 and 6. So I, as I am playing on the board number 3, was expected to at least draw a game. So with that mindset, I was let's say more relaxed, because I knew that with white pieces it's hard to lose fast, if you know what I mean, and it may make my opponent to push for a win a little bit too much, and then perhaps I would win. So I like that dynamic. It allows me to play a simple normal chess and then maybe create something later on, and for that reason I did not want to enter the e4 territory, because I knew my opponent would be really well prepared. So for that reason, in the game I opted for the knight f3 variation. Ready opening it is. My opponent replied with c5, which I expected. During my preparation I knew that perhaps it would be his reply, inviting me to once again play e4 and then switch to the Sicilian, but I refused to do it and I played c4 myself. And I spotted that my opponent is playing in here knight f6, so you get pretty symmetrical position. And at that point, obviously, white have many options. I can try playing d4, maybe even e4, g3, d3, all are playable options. However, I opted for the one that I haven't listed yet, which is e3. I spotted that after e3 move, which is logical because I would like to play d4 but with some preparation, my opponent plays e5, trying to stop that, and after e5 there are some forced lines that are occurring on the board, and I was expecting them, so I was preparing them. But guys, I did not prepare well enough. Let's see how and why. I opted for the d4. Some exchanges may happen, that's for sure. You have to be precise as white there, and the positions are crazy. I would have liked them to happen, but I knew that my opponent would perhaps go for the e4 move. So after d5, he takes my knight, I take his knight, and now it's the question of which pawn would black want to take. The c6 pawn that way, or the g2 pawn. So as I will tell you, I checked only two of those three options, and as you can imagine, the third one occurred on the board, and this is my mistake, because I was preparing a few more lines and I just did not think as a human being. I was thinking mostly as a, let's say, computer and what the Lichess opening book suggested, and the one that my opponent chose in the game was the one with the lowest liking on the opening book and the stockfish. However, from the human perspective, it was the most natural to play, so maybe you have guessed already, but the move that was played in the game was b takes c6. I was covering mostly two other options, but it is kind of obvious that if my opponent feels like he is better player, higher rated one, he would not go for such line, which I was happy to play, because as of now I am having little to no risk of losing the game, and I can try to play for an hour or for 5 hours if needed, if my team needs me, and so on. So I was happy with that. After f takes g2, I would then take on d7, take here, so my position is also fine. But the one that I should have expected the most, I just didn't check, and as of now I have to play let's say with my head only, without preparation. After the game, my opponent told me that very interesting idea now is to play e4, but this is it. If I knew that b takes c6 would be the move during the game, I would have checked it before, but it was my mistake of preparation and I didn't know the idea, so I decided to keep it simple, and I took on f3 immediately, which is also obviously a playable move, and I saw that my opponent is playing bishop d6, and I was like, okay, he is playing everything like from his memory very fast, and this is the thing that I told you guys during the previous analysis. Last round I was the one that was better prepared, but I didn't want to show it. I didn't want to show my opponent the confidence, In this game, the dynamic was different, so my opponent was better prepared and he was playing confidently to show me that he is the boss, and I was a little bit scared because bishop d6, it may seem counterintuitive, and it is for the most part, because why would you develop a bishop like this in front of the pawn so this bishop cannot enter the game and so on? What's the idea? Well, this is the tricky variation, this is the tricky idea, and so on, so on. So my opponent told me that he was preparing something crazy against me, so he still said that e4 would be the move, and I don't want to get into too much detail because those are the variations that my opponent knows, not me. But he said that he would have tried playing rook b8, bishop c7, maybe d6 or something like that, and then if I, let's say, developed normally and I would have castled before he would do that, he would be actually not be castling, but he would just play rook g8, g5, h5 and try to crush me. So I kind of knew what is going to happen in the future when I saw this move, because I felt like, okay, this is still the preparation, oddly looking move, and if something is oddly looking bad from the preparation, usually it holds some tricky idea behind it. So I decided, okay, I got out prepped, and also I was happy with a draw for myself individually and for a team. So I felt, alright, how can I make this game much more simple? So I immediately started looking at the knight e4 move, trying to move knight once, twice, and then if possible and if needed thrice, in order to at least exchange something. But then I realized that I don't have to rush with it so fast and I don't have to be so desperate for the exchanges. So I decided to start with simple development move, bishop d3, after which my opponent replied quickly with bishop e5, and I was like, okay, still some crazy variation. In which world you play moves like this, right? So I was like, okay, now's the time. If I don't exchange now, it's going to be a problem. I am being pressured here, and the b file is semi-open. If I continue playing, let's say, casually with castle, now after d5, cd5, bishop g4, I can shake hands and resign the game because my queen is trapped. So this was one idea that I had in mind. I was a little scared, so I decided, okay, I don't care. I will lose 2 more tempos with the knight to e4 and then knight to f6, just simply trying to get rid of this knight, because without the knight, obviously, there are no bishop g4 moves. I knew that perhaps my opening advantage is gone at that point, and I, as I've said, accepted my fate. This is something you get when you are not so great prepared. Anyway, as of now, I castled and I offered a draw to my opponent, because even though I lost my advantage after the opening, I knew that I shouldn't be worse either, and after further exchanges maybe in the center of the board, the position would be dry, as they say, meaning that there are no so many ways for either of the players to go for a win. And he was considering it, so even though in the end he did not accept the draw offer, I got myself like additional 15 minutes, because this is how long it took my opponent to take a decision, and he castled short too. So like, I believe that without my draw offer he would have castled in like 1 minute, and with my draw offer he was considering it, thinking what's good about it, what's not, and so on, and he wasted 15. So either way, for me it was a win-win, because either I get a draw that I would have liked to happen, or as in the game I have 15 more minutes, right? I mean, the opponent used it, so that's the case. Anyway, after castling and refusing my draw offer, I had to really dig deep into the position, because as I've told you guys, I didn't like the fact that my b2 pawn is pressured already, b file is open already, some queen a5 possibilities are there trying to hit this pawn, not only b2 pawn is attacked by, there are some pins there, so all this, my queen side is very weak. Also, such pawn structure as my opponent has is not as bad as it looks, because it's solid enough, and if I would decide to take, then the bishop might be an amazing piece at that diagonal. So all in all, I had to take into account many variations. I calculated this move, I believe also taking immediately, none of them was really working for me that well. However, after spending like, I don't know, 15 minutes or so, I finally put together all the ideas and the motives that are in the position, and I found a very interesting move that I very much like, and is, I believe, even on the thumbnail, which is e4. e4, that is counterintuitive, against many rules, so as you can tell, both myself and the opponent, we are playing against many rules today. What's the idea behind this move? The idea is a tactical one. If not for the tactics, perhaps it would be strategically a bad decision, but the point is this. If I, let's say, exchange only once on d5, then my opponent has what are called the hanging pawns, and usually it's good for me to play against them if I have coordination so great that I can attack those pawns. So for example, if I have the knight like that, if my bishop is on this diagonal, if my rooks are here or there, but I don't have the coordination, I don't have time to coordinate, I don't have any idea how to attack them, and if that's the case, then my opponent is happy about having those, because such pawns guarantees him the space control and all the other stuff in the center. So I didn't really want to take that, because bishop b7 would be deadly. So okay, how can I resolve the situation in the center differently? Then I spotted the move e4, and the point is this. If my opponent takes, now I have amazing pawn structure here, same as my opponent, but obviously he has worse structure there, so I can take with the bishop. Also, actually taking with the queen would be an okay move, I guess, because I'm looking there, but perhaps I would take with the bishop, but that's not the point. We are talking about the ideas now, so that's one idea. And the other idea, which is the most important one, I believe, is d4, because after d4 my opponent get the passer, central one, that is protected. My bishop seems very much blocked, and what's the idea then? What's the idea then behind the e4 move? The idea was to play e5. That's the thing. That's the good stuff that we like. The point being that if bishop takes the pawn, I have queen e4 targeting the checkmate and the bishop, and I'm winning the game. And if my opponent goes back with the bishop, then, well, I'm so happy. I can take the pawn, I can then go back, I am getting the pawn advantage, space advantage, and so on. So I'm having many good things in the situation. For that reason, d4 cannot be played, and if the d4 cannot be played, either this exchange will happen or this, which will then make such pawns actually weaknesses, or my opponent can try to play bishop e6. But then the least I can do is basically take not only once but twice. So the point is that considering this structure or this structure, now I would be much happier, because it's only 2 against 2 on the queen side. So even though this pawn is under the attack, still this one would be a weak one. So after many further exchanges, I believe that the game would have ended shortly in some draw offer from either side, because this is how usually such position resolves, meaning that with the bishop pair for both players, plenty of exchanges happen, pawns are taken off the board, and that's a draw. Anyway, that did not happen, because some other exchange happened that I already highlighted, which was d takes c4. I didn't really understand it strategically, but the point is once again tactical, because strategically it does not make much sense to leave yourself with such majority on the queen side, because I have a healthy majority on the king side, right? This pawn is a healthy central pawn. It should allow me some, let's say, overall counterplay or play in general. However, the point was that my opponent now played queen d4, hitting me here, not really allowing me to coordinate that well. And furthermore, he is planning on developing the rook, hitting the pawn. So I have the decision: should I go like that, allowing c4 with a tempo, let's say? Should I go like that, making my queen pinned to the pawn? Should I go, I don't know, maybe queen d3, forcing the exchanges, but would opponent exchange, or just simply still play rook e8? So I had few problems, as I've said, tactical ones, and I felt like if I will resolve them, I should be okay. So I played bishop b3, strangely looking move, but the idea was that after c4 that might have been played, I have rook to d1, intermediate move, kicking away the queen, and after queen c5 trying to still control the pawn, I have bishop e3, queen b4, bishop d2, so I felt like I would be attacking the queen continuously like that, but now I see that obviously queen b5 is the possibility, so I'm not so sure about this position. But either way, at that point I perhaps could have played also like bishop c2, and I should be fine or too. So I was not worried about c4 move, I was mostly more worried about rook e8, because the pawn is attacked, and I calculated the line of e5, queen e5, queen c6, bishop f5, bishop e3 hitting the pawn, and if my opponent takes here, I can take here, and the point is that he cannot really exchange queen for 2 rooks and try to go for a win, because I would have taken his bishop at the end. So if f5 square is not so great and he would like to play bishop g4, because obviously the point is that rooks have to see each other. After a very same variation in here, I would play rook b1 in between, and now if the queen moves somewhere, I can still take on c5, and as you can tell, everything exchanged as I now previously described. So this would be the end of the variation. However, perhaps you spotted the draw on the board. I believe it's now gone, because it should be after move rook e8, because that's the moment when my opponent offered me a draw. So he refused it a few moves ago, but now he proposed it, and I felt like it's just because he saw the e5 move coming and all the exchanges, and he felt like, alright, let's just offer a draw and go home. But actually he was not calculating e5, but he was just simply worried strategically, as I've told you guys, about simple move bishop c2, because he felt like I would be then kicking away his queen once or twice and so on. But I told him that I didn't like the position as much, because after, let's say, c4, rook d1, queen b6, I was not so happy about this pawn being attacked. So sure, those are the weaknesses, but I am still under pressure, so I cannot really resolve all my issues. So that's why I would go for the simplifications and for a drawish position. So if a draw offer was on the board at that point, I just simply accepted it, once again admitting that, okay, my preparation was not so great, but for the team a draw was fine, so I took it. So at the time of recording, I am only one player from my team that has ended the game, so all my other teammates are fighting. So I'm recording this for you guys, but I am now going back to cheer for my team. Hopefully you liked the game. It was quite unusual one from the start to the end. We broke some usual chess rules, if you may say that, but all in all, kind of a good game, at least I hope so. Let's check the review. Hopefully it will be also a good one with over 90%. I'm not sure if I was under 90, so it feels right. Nice. Yeah, 98. My opponent only 89. Very strange, because it feels like he was the one pushing for a few moves there, but okay, if that's the case, so be it. But I'm not so happy with my game, but I'm happy with the result. Let's keep our finger crossed for my team. After the match will finish, in the next video I will give you the update how did the match end. And with that, thank you all for watching. We'll see each other tomorrow, hopefully with a good news, and see you. Bye bye.